wonderfully made. That's what each and every one of us are wonderfully made. I'm probably preaching to the choir today about how God is the creator of all life. We all, I think, pretty much know and understand that. And if you're hoping that I'm going to be shedding any new light on that subject, I'm probably not going to be doing that. What I am going to do is show more scientifically how it fits with God. You may not have any answers to your questions, but you might end up having even more questions. So, which is good, because then you can search for answers to those questions. So, what is life? When NASA started looking into exploring all these other planets in our solar system, they needed a definition of what life was in case they ran across some of it. They got a group of notable scientists, chemists, biologists, and physicists together to brainstorm and making up a set of laws that determine what life is. After 5 weeks, there was one of them in the group that made the statement that defining life was like defining what game is. The word game. This article I read said that every child knows what peekaboo is by the age of 1. And you think of all the various forms that games come in. Just about any activity that we do can be made into a game. Wendy likes this, that I mop the bathroom floors over in the gold program over there, and when I mop the women's bathroom, we have a little pail in each of the cubicles. Well, I move it out of the way so I can mop behind each of the toilets. And anyway, when I go to move the bucket back, I take and slide it across the floor, and if it hits right in the right place, well, I get 1 point for that. If I have to move it after I've slid it, well, then I don't get any points. And if the bucket tips over by the time it gets there, I lose a point. So I have 4 bathrooms, or 4 stalls, and 5 days, I have a possible 20 points. I've only made it up to 12 points. So yeah, you can make a game out of everything. So that's what they were looking at and trying to define what life is. So, does a game have winners and losers? Not always. Does a game have rules? Well, yes. Just like I had rules in what had to be done in my little game. Well, life has rules too, and that is what NASA was trying to formulate, was these rules. So, in trying to devise these rules that they're looking for, they, of course, they looked at the model we have here on Earth. And we have rules that govern life here on Earth. And first off, there are forms of life here on Earth, and they come in 5 forms. They have true bacteria, archaea, protists, fungi, and plant and animal. Those are the categories that life can fit in. We all pretty much know what plant and animal life is. Bacteria, we pretty much kind of know what that is. They are biological cells that are free living. That means they are free to live outside of a host. And so, though bacteria will grow when it comes in contact with certain things. Archaea is something I was not familiar with. They are single-cell organisms that lack a nucleus. These organisms live in extreme Earth's environments. They account for 20% of all the microorganisms that live on planet Earth. You can find these organisms living deep in the ocean in thermal vents. They're even found living in the most harshest salinity areas, places that no other life can ever exist. If you go to Yellowstone Park and you look at these geysers and these mud pools and stuff, and you see the various colors, those are these microorganisms that are living in that environment. If you go down to the sewage treatment plant here, you will be able to see some of these organisms at work down there. They are what digests our sewage. And we have, I don't know what it looks like now, but at one time they had they're great big tumbler-like things, and they're filled with these microorganisms, and the sewage goes in one side, and as it rotates around, these organisms, they eat that, and then out the other end comes whatever's left, and most of the byproduct is methane gas. You will have these organisms at work in your body today after you eat your meal. They live in your stomach and in your gut, and they actually help you break down the food that you eat. You yourselves are contributing to global warming because these organisms that are living within you. So other things that we have is fungi. Fungi is something that is really a vital component to our world. Because we have death and decay, if we didn't have the fungi, this stuff that dies would just keep building up and up and up, and it would never be recycled. And so the fungi is used to recycle and put it back into a form that living creatures can use. So all these life forms exhibit various traits that cross over from one another. In biology, it is generally agreed that organisms that possess the following 7 characteristics are animate or living beings and thus possess life. They have the ability to respire, grow, excrete, produce, metabolize, move, and are responsive to their environment. Some need to have another of its kind to reproduce, while others just need an outside stimulus to cause reproduction. So they gave an example that a mule can't reproduce, so it obviously can't be an animal, or it can't be a living being, but it can, or it is a living being, though it doesn't have one of the things that it can do. There's a fish that is found in the desert Southwest, and they found that every one of the fish, they're all females. So how do they reproduce? Well, they found that it has a distant cousin, and the distant cousin, all it has to do is just show up, and the females are stimulated enough that they reproduce themselves. And so these fish are an exact duplicate of the other one, since there's no male counterpart to put any differences in there. So they're all female. Earthworms. Well, earthworms, they don't need another earthworm to reproduce. They can just reproduce on their own. Or if they just happen to encounter another earthworm, well, they can reproduce that way too. That's how they get their DNA is intermixed. Whereas these fish, their DNA is all duplicate. So then you have things that are anomalies, and they are viruses and prions. They have no genetic matter, so they are not regarded as living organisms, but they are not classified as dead either. So they are just an entity of themselves. What they are, they're a group of molecules that when they come into contact with genetic matter, they mutate the genetic matter, and then that's how it is carried on. So NASA, in their whole big study they did, they decided in their classification that life is life. And it's indefinable. And if it shows up in outer space and they see it, well, they will know if it's life or if it's not life. So millions of dollars was spent on that study. So, but in whatever form it is, what a marvelous thing that life is. Have you ever taken the time to contemplate the things around you? And it doesn't even have to be things that are alive. Rocks are an amazing thing. And have you ever just taken time to think that God made the rocks too? So I mean, he made everything. So, how does a seed planted in the soil know which way to grow? Does it just randomly go somewhere and just by accident it happens to poke up out of the ground? No, generally it always grows grows upward. What makes the cell of an eye different from that of your lung? What if your eye started trying to breathe? That wouldn't work too well. In a normal, healthy organism, cells form according to a blueprint in the proper location and are able to function according to the way they were made to function. Now, there are some instances when we have genetic defects and things that cause mutations and things not to work correctly, but as a whole, the body functions the way it's supposed to. My aunt, when she was first pregnant with her first son, she took that drug that was supposed to alleviate morning sickness. Well, my cousin was born with a crooked arm and no thumb. And so we can introduce things into ourselves and into our environment that cause genetic changes, which wasn't in God's original plan. With all our great science, we still have yet to be able to produce life. We can reproduce life, but we cannot just start from scratch. Science has theories about the question, or science has theories, but the question still remains, how do chemical molecules just come together and form a dynamic, self-assembling, living entity? It just is, when you contemplate that, it's beyond our comprehension, I guess. So rather than live by science alone, we need to do what is said in Hebrews 11:3. By faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. And then we have John 1:3. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. Have you heard the term spark of life? Well, that's something that actually exists. They have just recently, within the last 20 years, I guess, they've actually been able to witness that. Did you know that, when the sperm cell comes in contact with the egg, there is a spark of light that is emitted when that happens. Now, the scientists say, well, that's because we have this chemical, and when they come in contact and a chemical reaction takes place, light is the byproduct of this. Well, I don't know if that's the case or not. They found that this occurrence is most prevalent in primates, and us humans are in that classification as being a primate. And through all the primates, this emitted light is the largest when it comes to humans. So science has proven that we are different than other created beings. And it starts right when we're being developed in the womb. So we can't be some random rung on some evolutionary ladder. There's too many things that aren't explainable through science. But yet, at the same time, we're using science to see some of those changes. So just look at us, even with all of our faults and shortcomings, we humans are some pretty special characters. Well, we have a new addition in our family here at church. And I was going to invite her up, but I didn't get to you or didn't talk to you. But on your bulletin, I was maybe even going to have a picture of Mikhail on the bulletin, but I didn't do all that. But that represents our new member in our family. But I just want you to take a look at him and just see how wonderfully that he is made. And I'm sure his parents will definitely agree that he's pretty wonderful. Well, I never promised you that I would expound upon great biblical truths and that I would leave you with even more questions. And I hope that you do have questions, and by all means, explore them. I mean, even if it takes a walk down to the river and to see all the different life forms that are present. You should question, though, scientific findings. When and if they do say, oh, there's life on Mars, we found it. Question it. You know, did they really find life, or was it some anomaly that they've found an area on Mars that they haven't been able to get to because it's on a cliff face, but the cliff face is a different color, and they want to get there and drill into it because they think it was probably ancient algae is what they think it is. So don't be satisfied with what you hear. When you look past the mundane and see the marvel of it, science can also get mundane. It's so commonplace that you just take it verbatim that that's the truth. And so always see the marvel in everything. You will be able to see the hand of God at work if you do that. So I'm leaving you with this one last Bible text, Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Let me reread that. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So, looking at God's creation around you, you have no excuse for not seeing the hand of God at work there.